I think now it's visible now. Right. Now, अतः स्नेहोपयोगिकचिकित्सितं व्याख्यास्यामः यथोवाच भगवान् धन्वन्तरिः. Next is about the sneha, and preparation of the sneha is the main topic there. स्नेहसारोऽयं पुरुषः प्राणाश्च स्नेहभूयिष्ठाः स्नेहसाध्याश्च भवन्ति. स्नेहो हि पान अनुवासन मस्तिष्क शिरोबस्ति उत्तरबस्ति नस्य कर्णपूर्ण गात्राभ्यङ्गभोजनेषु उपयोज्यः. तत्र द्वियोनिः चतुर्विकल्पो अभीतः स्नेहः स्नेहगुणाश्च. तत्र जङ्गमेभ्यो गव्यं घृतं प्रदानं स्थावरेभ्यः तिलतैलं प्रधानम् इति. Now this purusha for a living, sneha is required. Sneha is absolutely necessary for the life passage, and it's one of the essential components of the body. Sneha is an essential component of the body, and those who have the content of the sneha in the body, they would be strong and they will be in a better health condition as such. Now, word sneha, it means many issues. Like the literary meaning of the word sneha is friendship, but in the context of sneha, as a property, sneha guna, snigdha guna, it is something which facilitates the movement between the two components. Then when it comes to the question of sneha dravya, it's about the oily substances. Most of the times it is translated as fat substance, which I do not really agree, but any of the substances which produce a lubricating activity in the body, something like a lubrication, which facilitates the movement between substances between two sheets or maybe two areas of the body, that can be two compartments of the body, would be considered as a sneha. And as far as the therapeutic issues are concerned, sneha is used in the form of the either taila, that's the vegetable oil, and among the vegetable oils, tila is more important, or it could be ghruta, that's ghee, and among the ghee of different animals, gavyam ghrutam pradhanam, the gavya ghruta, cow's ghee is better. Then you will also have the other varieties of the sneha, which are 4 varieties, like the madhya also can be considered as a sneha, and these could be used in the form of pana, anvasana, masishka, shirobasti, uttarabasti, nasya, karnapurna, abhyanga bhojana. In all the different categories it can be used as such, and among them gavyam ghrutam pradhanam, savarebhyah tilatailam pradhanam. Now the definition of sneha mentioned in Ashtanga Hridaya is very classical. Guru, Shita, Sara, Snigdha, Manda, Sukshma, Mridu, Dhruvam, Aushadham, Snehanam, Prayaha, Vipuritam, Virukshanam. Any of the dravya which has Guru Guna, Shita Guna, and Sara Guna which facilitates the movement, and Snigdha Guna, Manda, Sukshma, Mridu, such a substance is called sneha. So it's not only oil, or it's not only ghee, or it's not only the bone marrow, or so on. So the issue is any substances which could have this property could be considered as sneha, but mainly the 4 are the important. अतः यथा प्रयोजनं यथा प्रदानं स्थावर स्नेहानुपदेक्ष्यामः तत्र तिर्वक एरण्डक कोशाम्र दन्ति द्रवन्ति सप्तला शङ्खिनी पलाश विषाणिक गवाक्षी कम्पिलक शम्पाक नीलिनी स्नेहाः विरेचयन्ति. Now the sneha extracted from these plants, it's for the virechana. Similarly, Jimutaka, Kutaja, Kritavedhana, Ikshvaku, Dhamargava, Madana Sneha Vamayanti. The sneha or oil extracted from these plants would produce Vamana. Vidanga, Kharamanjari, Madhu Shigru, Suryavalli, Pilu, Siddharthaka, Jyotishmati Sneha Shiro Virajayanti. The sneha extracted by these plants will produce shirovirachana. Karanja, Putika, Kritamala, Matlunga, Inguti, Kirapitiktaka, Sneha, Dustavraneshu Vijate. The sneha extracted from these plants would be used in treatment of Dustavrana. Tuvaraka, Kapitha, Kampilaka, Bhallataka, Patola Sneha, Mahavyadishu. Tuvaraka Kampila, these dravyas, the sneha extracted from these dravyas would be used in Kushta like Vyadhi. Trapusa, Yervaruka, Karkaruka, Tumbi, Kushpanda Sneha, Mutra Sangesho. The sneha extracted from these plants would be used in urinary obstruction conditions. Kapotavanka, Avalguja, Haritaki Sneha, Sharkara, Ashmarisho. The sneha extracted from these plants would be used in Sharkara or Ashmari, urinary calculi conditions. Kusumba, Sarshapa, Atasi, Pijumarda, Atimuktaka, Bhandi, Katatumbi, Katabhi Sneha, Prameheshu. The tailas extracted from these plants would be used in Prameha. Tala, Narikela, Panasa, Mocha, Priyala, Bilva, Madhuka, Shleshmataka, Amrataka, Palasneha, Pitta Samsiste Vayo. The sneha extracted from these plants would be used in Pitta Samskrita or Pitta Samsista Vata condition, Vata Pitta condition. Narikela Sneha, the coconut oil which is used quite frequently in our area, it's under that Pitta Vrata Vata Hara condition. Vivitaka, Bhallataka, Penditaka Sneha, Krishnikarane, the taila extracted here would be used for producing a darker pigmentation. Shravana Kanguka Tuntuka Sneha Pandukarane, the extracted oil of these plants would be used for reducing the pigment or inducing hypopigmentation. Sarala Pisadaro Shimshapa Aguru Sneha Sara Sneha Dabru Kusta Kitibeshu. The oil extracted from these would be used in Dabru Kusta Kitiba etc. Sarvayeva Sneha Vatam Upaghanti Taila Gudascha Samasena Vyakhyataha. All the snehas in general will be used in Vata, but there is more specific use about some of the sneha dravyas. So the type or the technique of extraction of the oily substance from different plants, it was well developed and it was quite elaborate. Lots of plants were used for extracting oil in Sushru's period. Atavurdham Kashaya Sneha Paka Kramam Padekshamaha Tatra Kechidaho Takpatra Palamuladinam Bhagaha Tat Chaturgunam Jalam Chaturbhaga Vishesham Nishpratya Apahare Ityesha Kashaya Paka Garpaha Sneha Prasesho Shatsu Chaturgunam Dravam Avapya Chaturashta Akshasaman Bheshya Pinda Ityesha Sneha Paka Garpaha Yetatana Samyaka Kasmat Agama Asiddhatvat. Now, the sneha paka, preparation of a sneha paka, that's the taila which has to be prepared in the form of a medicine. It requires a processing, and that processing would be by adding substances into the taila and then boiling it. Now, to prepare that, the ratio of the substances used for this would be different depending upon the type of the oil, as well as there was a different sort of the practice. There is a standardized practice, and according to Sushruta, Takpatra Phalamula, the different plant components like leaves etc., they have to be accumulated together and boiled with 4 times of water, Tachatuguram Jalam, and then it has to be boiled till it reduces to 1/4, and this becomes the kashaya, the kashaya which is used for preparation of the sneha later. And sneha praseshu shatsu chaturgunam dhruvamapya chaturaksha saman bheshari pindana. Then the oil has to be added 4 times of this kashaya, and or at times it's according to some it's 6 times, and this is not really acceptable as Sushruta. It's only the 4 times which is to be added. Now that prasuta, that quantity prasutatra sayukta panchanguli isha vistruta padhi ekaha, that prasuta, the quantity measuring would be sneha prasuta, the sneha which has to be added either 6 times or 4 times. That's the controversy. The one prasuta means, according to Sushruta, when you hold the hand with the fingers held together and extended, fully extended palm, that's the prasruta, not paladvaya, not the two palas. This is according to Dallad. चतुरश्च अक्षसमान भेषजकल्कपिण्डान् विभीतकफलमानान् पिष्टभेषजकल्कान्. When you say chatura, akshasama means one pala or one tola of these plants, kalka of these plants can be added as such. Palakodavadinam ato manam tu vyakhyasyaamaha. Now, the measures of these words, pala and kodava. Now, when it comes to the question of measuring, in Sushrutas period or in our traditional Ayurvedic texts, there were two types of measures, Kalingamana and Magadhamana. Now, Sushruta describes follows one of that. Tatra dvadasha dhanyamashah madhyamaha suvarnamashakah te shodasha suvarnam अथवा मध्यम निष्पावाः एकोनविंशतिः धरणं तानि अर्धतृतीयानि कर्षः ततश्च ऊर्ध्वं चतुर्गुणम् अभिवर्धयन्तः फलकुडवप्रस्थ अटकद्रोणाः इति अभिनिश्य निष्पद्यन्ते तुला पुनः फलशतं ताः पुनर्विंशतिः भारः शुष्काणाम् इदं मानम् आर्द्रद्रवाणां च द्विगुणम् इति. Measuring the dry and liquid as well as time and so on, lots of measuring techniques were there in the earlier days in ancient India. And among them, from Ayurvedic point of view, now there are many measures, but from Ayurvedic point of view, Kalingamana and Magadhamana are more important. Now, Sushruta follows Magadhamana, Tatra Dvadasha Dhanyamashah, that's the 12 Masha is equal to 1 Swarna Masha, and 16 Swarna Masha is equal to 1 Swarna, and Ekonavimshati, that 21 of this Swarna is a Dharana, and 3.5 of the Dharana is a Karsha. From 4 Karshas is Pala, 4 Pala is Kudava, 4 Kudava is Prastha, and 4 Prastha is Adhaka, and 4 Adhaka is Drodha. Tula Punaha Palashatam, 100 Pala is considered as a Tula. This is the measure, and these are for Shushka Dravya, dry Dravya, according to Sushruta. Now, Manam to Dvividam Prahu Kalingam Magadham Tada, Kalingat Magadham Shreshtam Mana Vido Viduhu, Kalingamapi Manam Charakachari Samhidam. According to Charaka, it's Kalingamana which is more preferred, and hence the measures and the terms used in Charaka Samhita are different. Whereas Magadhamana is accepted by Sushruta, and the Magadhamana, according to Dhallana, is considered to be Shrestha, is more important. Now, the same comparison of Magadhamana and Kalingamana, this is Magadhamana in a form of table, the same which we have discussed, Masha, Swarna Masha, etc., the same, and 100 Pala is equal to 1 Tula. Whereas Kalingamana, it starts with Gaura Sarshapa, Yava, Gunja, and Masha, and Pala. And in Pala is equal to roughly about 160 grams, or 1 Kodava in Charaka Samhita, that's the Kalingamana. In Magadhamana, 1 Pala is equal to 4.8 kg, that's the point of difference. Now, to avoid these confusions, Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia Committee has come to a conclusion, and they have now made a list of all that, combined all this, Magadha and Kalingamana, and they have come to a consensus, and based upon that consensus, the present day's measure in Ayurvedic remedies as per the Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia would avoid all that confusion, and with an idea of avoiding the confusion, this measure was adopted, where both of them were added together, and some more of the information from the ancient texts were added, and they came to a conclusion by a committee, and that committee has suggested 1 Rakti is equal to 125 milligram, and 8 Raktis or Gunja is 1 Masha, that's 1 gram, and 12 Mashas are 1 Karsha, and 2 Karshas are 1 Shukti, 2 Shukti is 1 Pala, and the equivalent 1 Pala is around 48 grams, 2 Palas are 1 Prasuti, that's 96 grams. So, Prasuti according to the current accepted measure would be like 96 grams, whereas Sushruta has measured Prasuta by that measure of the substances which can be held in a extended hand with a slightly flexed finger. Then Kudava is 1 Manaka, and 2 Manika is 1 Prastha, that's 768 grams. 4 Prastha is 1 Adhaka, 3 kg and 73 grams. 4 adaka is 1 drona, 12 kgs and 280 grams. And 2 dronas is 1 shurpa, that's 24 kg, and 2 shurpas are 1 droni or vahi, 49 kg, and 4 dronis, 1 khari, that's 196 kg, and 100 palas is equal to 1 tula, 4 kg and 800 grams, and 20 tulas is 1 bhara. This is the currently adopted measure. Though this is mentioned in Ayurvedic pharmacopoeia, most of the times still there is a lot of confusion about this, and people use different techniques to different when they use the substances. But I think once there is a consensus, it's necessary that we should follow that same. तत्र अन्यतम परिमाण संहितानां यथो योगम यथा योगम त्वक् पत्र फलं मूलादीनां आतप परिशोषितानां छेद्यानि खण्डशश्छेदयित्वा भेद्यानि अंशो भेदयित्वा अवकुट्य अष्टगुणेन षोडशगुणेन वा अम्भसा अभिषिच्य स्थाल्यां चतुर्भागावशिष्टं कातयित्वा अपहे निर्देशकषाय पाककल्पः. So preparation of the kashaya, again it has to be, you have to break the substances into small pieces, whatever you use. Either it has to be broken, cut into small pieces, or it is to be pounded into small pieces, and then you have to add 16 times of water and reduce it to 1/4, and that becomes a kashaya. Sneha chaturgunah dravaha, 1/4 of that is sneha has to be added. Sneha chaturtamsha bheshira kalka, 1/4 of the sneha dravya is the kalka has to be added. Tad ekadam samsajya vipajeta, this has to be put together and boiled. This is a snehopaka kalpa. So according to Sushruta, the ratio of the kashaya, kalka and sneha is kashaya is 4 times, sneha is 1/4 of the kashaya, and 1/4 of that is the kalka, and this has to be the ratio according to Sushruta. But Shandadhara later on has standardized, and the ratio there is slightly different, so you will have a bit of confusion, overlapping. I think the better option is you will have to follow the same which is followed in Samhitas. अथवा तत्र उदकद्रोणे पत्रफूलमूलादीनां तुलाम् आवाप्य चतुर्भागवशिष्टं निष्पाद्य अपहरेदित्येषः or it could be like in 1 drona udaka you will have to add 1 tula of the dravyas and prepare the kashaya. Sneha kudave bheshaj palam pishtam kalkam chaturgunam dravam avapya vipajetityesha sneha pakalpada. It's the same ratio, comes to the same ratio. It's mentioned in the form of the tula and kudava. The same measures, ratio comes to the same asset. भवतश्चात्र स्नेह भेषजतोयानां प्रमाणं यत्र नियतितं तत्र अयं विधिराश्चेयः निर्दिष्टो तद्वदेव तु अनुक्ते द्रवकार्ये तु सर्वत्र सलिलं मतं कल्कक्वातव निर्देशे गणाः तस्मात् प्रयुज्येत. Now this ratio which is mentioned for preparation of the sneha any tailapaka has to be followed when there are no other specific ratio mentioned in the yoga. If there is any specific ratio which is other than this is mentioned in a specific yoga, that has to be followed. And whenever the substances which are to be added, liquid substance which is not mentioned specifically in any yoga, then it has to be water which has to be added. And if kalka and kvata are not mentioned, then you prepare a kalka and kvata of a similar gana which is of that substance, which is comparable to that substances which are purpose of your treatment. Then atavurdam snehapaka kramam vadekshamaha. The procedure of the snehapaka, identifying like when the correct snehapaka has reached or not. Satu trividaha pradyata mruduhu madhyamaha karaha iti. Snehapaka, that ultimate final product, has to be maybe graded into 3 categories: mrudupaka, madhyapaka or kharapaka. Tatra sneha aushadhi vivekamatram yatra bhesham samruduhu iti. When you boil and prepare, just the moment there is a separation of the oily component and that kalka, that residual substance is seen during that boiling. And if you stop boiling at that moment, that becomes the mrudupaka. Madhuchistamya vishadam avilapya yatra bhesham samadhyamaha. When the residue, that solid substance, becomes somewhat sticky, something like the bee wax, and doesn't stick to the vessel, that's considered as madhyamapaka. Then कृष्णम् अवसन्नम् ईषद्विशदं चिक्कणं च यथा भेषजं स खरः इति. When the same substance becomes black and it is discrete, it not sticky as such, then it's considered as kharapaka. Ata urdhvam dagdha sneha bhavati. If you go beyond, if you heat beyond that, that becomes dagdha sneha, which is not suitable. Tam punaha sadhu sadhayeta. So you have to prepare it properly. Tatra pana abhyavahayoho mriduho nasya abhyangyoho madhyamaha basti karnapurnayostu kharaha. According to Susuda, for oral consumption, it's mridupaka. For nasya and abhyanga madhyamapaka. For basti and karnapurna karapaka. This is according to Susuda. But in Charaka there is a slight variation. Kharo abhyange mruduhu nasye pane bastaucha madhyamaha. According to Charaka, for pana it's madhyama, whereas according to Susuda it's mrudupaka. And in the basti, according to Susuda it is a karapaka, but according to Charaka it is mrudu madhyamapaka. And for the nasya, according to Charaka it is a mrudupaka, whereas according to Charaka, Susuda it should be madhyamapaka. For abhyanga, of course, the khara paka application, for external application, it is the khara paka which is suggested. Now, who is right, who is wrong, and what would be the difference? This kind of an analytical study is not done. The differences, of course, would be based upon the current content in that substance. Now, I will come to that part. What can happen? Shabdasya uparame prapte venasya upashame tatha gandha varnarasadinam sampattau siddhimadisheta घृतस्य एवं विपकस्य जानीयात् कुशलोभिषेक फेनो अतिमात्रं तैलस्य शेषं घृतवद आदिशेत. When you the correct sign of the snehapaka is as you heat the sneha, that oily substance, when there is no more sounds produced, that boiling sound, tak sound, and that suggests about the absence of the humidity. The water content, it produces that sound, and when it is reduced, or when there are no more foam formed, then it's considered as a samyak snigdha, and at the same time the smell and the color should be seen properly. Ghritasya, in ghrita, pheno atimatram tailasya shesham ghritavadisheta. In ghrita there will be more phena acid. Now, what happens when you heat, and why that the difference of paka, mrudu, madhyama, khara paka, from the science point of view, maybe current science point of view, when you heat the fatty substances beyond a certain degree temperature, it becomes smoky. That's what we call as a kharapakas. And at that temperature, there will be a change in the structure of the fat molecule. The normal structure of a fat molecule is a cis structure, where there will be a double band and all the molecules will be in the same direction. But when you heat beyond a certain limit, particularly beyond that heating limit as such, or smoking limit as such, it becomes a trans fat, and the trans fat is considered to be harmful. The change, there will be structural changes in the aliphatic chain of the fat, and this becomes trans fat, and that's why the proper heating is necessary. Dagdha paka, that's a smoky level, should not be reached as per our text, and this is important issue. And the temperature by which it reaches, or the dagdha or smoky point, would be different for different oily substances. Ghee is considered to be better because it has the maximum temperature. It doesn't get smoky, or it doesn't get converted into transfer fat at an early stage. Up to about 250 degrees centigrade, the trans fat formation doesn't occur in ghee, whereas in oils it occurs a bit earlier. In coconut oil, by 177 degrees centigrade, it becomes a trans fat, and hence the selection of the oil or selection of any of the oily substances for the heat snehapaka would be based upon this property. And moreover, ghee is considered to be superior because the chances of the transformation is lesser, and that grading of the heat like mrudu, madhya, khara is absolutely scientific and has a very strong scientific basis which need to be appreciated. That's all the point. Then atavurdham sneha panakarmam upadeshyagnaha atha kalu lagu koshtaya aturaya krita mangala swasti bhajanaya udaya giri shikhara samsle pratapta kanaka nikara pita lohite सवितरि यथा बलं तैलस्य घृतस्य वा मात्रां पातुं प्रयच्छेत् पीतमात्रे च उष्णोदकेन उपस्पृश्य सोपानोदको यथा सुखं विहरेत्. The snehapana it should be like once the patient should not have any other food, the kosta should be lagu kosta, and that means in empty stomach, and with all the religious protocols, you have to give the sneha in early morning. Udayagiri Shikhara Samsthe, in the early morning after the sunrise, that's the right time for giving the sneha. And after the dose, proper dose has to be decided. Deciding the proper dose is the next part. And after consumption of sneha, the patient should take warm water and should move around with the upanatka, the footwear, or he has to protect himself and then move around. Then Ruksha Kshata Visharpanam Vatapitta Vikarinam Hira Medha Smritinam Tia Sarpipanam Prishasve Krimi Kosta Anilavistaha Pravruddha Kapametasaha Pipeyuhu Tailasatmyashta Tailam Dardhartinasche Vyayamatrashitaha Shushka Reto Rakta Maharujaha Mahagni Martha Pranaha Vasa Yogyaha Naraha Smritaha Krurashayaha Kleshasaha Vatartha Dittavannayaha Madhyanam Apnihus Sarve Sarpirva Swaushudhanmitam. Now the indications for these different snehas are mentioned. Those who have very dry body and who have accumulated poisonous substances or vatapitta vikara, or those who have a improper intellectual property or impaired intellectual activity, they have to be given ghrita. Those who have creamy kosta, that's any of the worms in the abdomen or in the stomach acid, or kapha metasa, those who have aggravated kapha and meta, or those who want to become stronger, dhandyartinaha, they prefer taila, or those who are adjusted to or accommodated to taila acid. Then those who have strained more and have lesser semen or impaired semen conditions, or who have very powerful digestive property, they could be given vasa. Whereas krurashaya, those krurakosta, and those who can tolerate high stress acid and have very strong agni, they could be given majja. Kevalam paitike sarpihi patake lavananitam deyam bahukape chapi vyoshak sharasamayitam. Whenever you give the sneha, in case of pittaja vyadi, it should be kevala ghrita can be given, and in vataja vyadi, ghrita with lavana, and kapaja vyadi, Thikatu or Kshara can be added to the Ghrita. Doshanam Alpabhuyastum Samsargam Samamekshata India Trishasthida Bhinihi Samasa Vyasato Rasihi. The other substances could be added, and the whole variety of these variations of the rasa could be 64 pravitaranas, and depending upon the dosha condition, and you may prefer any of these yogas, pravitarana yogas, in a patient when you prefer the sneha. So preparation of the sneha could be modified according to the body conditions as such. Practically, most of the times now, we may not do this individualized or custom made taila preparation is not done. We usually give the already prepared sneha. Ideally, it should be prepared custom made based upon the dosha condition, and the substances which can be added, which can modify the rasa, has to be according to the condition, which is quite difficult, practically difficult. स्नेहसाप्नेह क्लेशसः कालेन अत्युष्णशीतले अच्छमेव पिबेत् स्नेहम् अच्छपानं हि पूजितम्. Acha sneha, again there is a lot of confusion about that word. Many times the people consider acha sneha as a pure variety of ghee taila, but it's not. Any preparation which has the identity of a taila or a ghita, where you have added many substances, is a acha sneha. When the same identity is altered and it is given in the form of some other substance like food substance or maybe something like puri, chakuri, etc., then it becomes the pravicharana. So acha sneha, directly the shita sneha in the form of liquid, oil or ghee, which where you have identifiable this identity of that substance, where many other substances may be added. You may have all that like Panchatikta, Gugula or Indukanta Grita or so on. Any of the yoga, when it is presented in the form of a Grita, that's given, that's a Acha Sneha. And it should be given in a person who is Sneha Satna, who is already accustomed to taking the Sneha as such, and in not very warm or cold season, that Acha Sneha is to be pure, and that's always better, that Acha Sneha is always better. If a person is not able to consume that ghee or taila directly, then you may give the pravicharaka where the identity is concealed. It's given in a form which is where you may not see that oil or ghee content directly, it's hidden there. So you may prepare it in a form of the food and then it could be given. Shitakale diva, sneham ushnakale pibet nashi, vata pittadiko ratro, vata shreshmadiko diva. So initially, Sushil has suggested snehapana should be done in the early morning, but there could be some more modification based upon the environmental factors, and that would be in the cold season, it should be in the daytime, and in the warm, extremely hot season, it could be in the night, and if a patient has Vata Pitta Vyadhi, it could be given in the night again, and if the patient has Vata Kapila Vyadhi, it should be given in the daytime. Now again, most of the times we may not follow this, we generally follow the universal rule of giving in the early morning. Vatapittadikasya ushne trishna murcha unmadakarakah shite vatakapartasya gaurava aruchishudakata. If a patient is having Vatapitta Vyadhi and in the warm season you give it in the daytime, it may produce murcha and unmada, like there could be impaired consciousness. If it is given in Vata Kapila Vyadhi in a Shitakala, and in the night time, it may produce gaurava aruchi, heaviness and aruchi could be produced. Snehapyogachikitsa chet trishna ved ushnodakam naraha evamcha anupashamyantyam sneham ushnambunavameta dishyat shitehi shirashitam toyam chapi avagaheta. After consumption of the sneha in the prabhuta mantra, the patient may have thirst, and that thirst has to be compensated with warm water. If it is not possible, if the patient still has lot of excess of thirst and burning sensation, then you may induce a vomiting and that sneha could be expelled out after consuming warm water. And during this process, during the after the vamana, you have to keep him cool by applying the some cold substance or cold pack over the head as such. या मात्रा परिजीयेत चतुर्भागगते अहनि सा मात्रा दीपयत्यग्निम् अल्पदोषे च पूजिता. या मात्रा परिजीयेत तथा अर्धदिवसे गते सा वृष्या ब्रह्मणे च मध्यदोषे च पूजिता. या मात्रा परिजीयेत चतुर्भागावशेषिते स्नेहनीया च सा मात्रा बहुदोषे च पूजिता. या मात्रा परिजीयेत तथा परिणते अहनि ग्लानिमूर्च्छा मदान् हित्वा सा मात्रा पूजिता भवेत्. अहोरात्रात् असन्तुष्टा या मात्रा परिजयति सा तु कुष्ठ विष उन्मादग्रह अपस्मरनाशिनी. Now, currently, when we give the sneha, we follow a different manner. We start with the Hrisyasi mantra, very small duration, a small dose, and then go for the Hriswa mantra, then Laghu mantra, then the Prabhuta mantra as such. Gradually, the quantity is increased. This protocol is followed in Bhagavata and beyond that. That kind of a protocol is followed, and it's always start with the smaller dose and then it is increased, and the smaller dose is decided by the digestive capacity of the person. Now, according to that current protocol, a amount of the sneha which gets digested, where the eructation would not have the smell of the sneha, is the time taken for the digestion, and if it is about 4 hours, then we consider that as the Laghu Matra. And we start with the Hrisyasi Matra, a lesser than that, a dose which is lesser than that, then go ahead and go into the Prabhuta Sneha, where the patient would have Sneha Ajirna Lakshana or Samyak Snigdha Lakshana. Now in Sushruta, though the same protocol is followed, but that protocol is slightly different from what we do now. And this would be, that quantity would be decided based upon the type of the dosha involved and type of the disease involved. The quantity of the sneha, that grading of the sneha quantity would be based upon the same factor, like time taken for the digestion. A sneha quantity which gets digested in 1/4 of the day, that's around 6 hours, is considered as a Agni Deepala sneha, and it has to be given in Alpadosha. Whereas which takes about 12 hours, the quantity of the sneha which produces which gets digested in 12 hours is used for Brahmana Chikitsa and Madhya Dosha. or the involvement of dosha is more. या मात्र परिचय चतुर्भाग अवशेषिते a time this sneha which takes around 16 hours for digestion, that's 3/4 of the day, that is considered in bahudosha. And the amount of the sneha which gets which requires the whole day 24 hours for the digestion, which it can be given in glani, murcha, mada in such conditions as such. And it can if it should not produce that glani, murcha, mada, and if such a person has the diseases like kushta, visha, unmada, graha, pasmara, in such conditions that quantity is given. Now this is about Sushruta's notion, but practically when we do it now, we may not follow this protocol now as such. Now the generalized standard protocol is in every patient we start with the laghu matra and then reach to the level of the uttama matra, or where the patient would have the sneha ajirna lakshana or samyak snigdha lakshana. यथा अग्नि प्रथमा मात्रं पायेत विचक्षणः पीतो हि अतिबहुः स्नेहः जनयेत् प्राणसंशयम् मिथ्याचारात् बहुद्वाग्वा यस्य स्नेहो न जीयते विष्ठप्य चापि जीयेत तं वारणं उष्णेन वामयेत् ततः स्नेहं पुनर्दद्यात् लघुकोष्ठाय देहिने जीर्ण अजीर्ण विषङ्कायां स्नेहस्य उष्णोदकं पिबेत तेन उद्गारो भवेत् शुद्धः भक्तं प्रति रुचिस्ततः स्युः पच्यमाने दृढदाः भ्रामसादा अरतिक्लमः. The dose of the drug has to be decided. But if at all you have given more than what is the capacity in the initial stage itself, if you give a heavy dose in the beginning itself, it can produce severe trouble to the patient. Even it, according to Sushruta, it can produce pranasamshaya, fatal complications can occur. If at all the quantity given is more due to error, then you have to induce vomiting by consumption of water, warm water, so that the excess of the sneha is vomited out. And again, after that, once the patient has become normal, you may start with the sneha procedure with the smaller dose. If there is a confusion like whether the sneha has become digested or not, the better option is advise the patient to take warm water, and with that the patient would have udgara shuddhi, that's the digestion would occur. And during the digestion of the sneha, there will be tritudaha brahma, thirst, burning sensation, giddiness is common. परिशिच्य अद्भिः उष्णाभिः जीर्णस्नेहं ततो नरं यवागुं पायेच्च उष्णां कामं क्लिन्न अल्पतण्डुलां देयौ यूषरसौ वापि सुगन्धी स्नेहवर्जितौ कृतौ वापि अल्पसर्पिष्की विलेपी वा विधीयते. After the consumption of the sneha and after the signs of digestion have occurred, the patient should be given a light ganji or the alpatandula ahar. That's where it's only the liquid portion with very little of the grain portion has to be given, or yusha or these other substance food liquid substances which do not have sneha, which you do not add some more ghee or other acid. The consumption of the sneha should be for Pivetraham, Chaturaham, Panchaham, Shadaham Tata Sattaratat Param Sneha Satmi Bhavati Sevitaha. You should give sneha dravya for 3 days, 4 days or 5 days, maximum 7 days, not beyond 7 days. If you give it beyond 7 days, it becomes satmya. Now there is a bit of again a lot of misunderstanding about this sneha satmya word as such. Sneha satmya is a person who consumes sneha dravyas, oily substances every day in small quantities. Then it becomes a food and it becomes nourishing. It won't have the medicinal effect. If we are giving sneha for the medicinal effect, any sneha dravya has to be given for the medicinal effect, it should be in the form of the same, like you start with a moderate quantity, increase till the patient has become a samyak snigdha lakshana. Samyak snigdha lakshana, that's where you will have the sneha jirna, adhastha, sneha darshana, etc. And should not be more than 7 days anytime, because if you give it for 7 days, the medicinal effect will be lost. It becomes a food factor, and hence the administration of any sneha dravya, any ghrita or taila, etc. in small quantities every day for months together will not have the medicinal activity. There is a practice of giving this every day, but in many conditions, but which I say that it's not a correct protocol. If at all you have to give a sneha, it should be given in the same form, like small quantities given for 3 days, 5 days or so until the patient has Samyak Snigdha Lakshana, then withdraw. Either you may go for the Shodhana, Vamana or the Virechana, or at times if you may not even avoid that. That's exactly what's called as Shamana Sneha by Vagbhata. Vagbhata has used the word Shamana Sneha, where again the protocol is the same, where you give the Sneha for a short duration. You may not end up with the Shodhana, that's called as Shamana Sneha. When you end up with the Shodhana, that's the Shodhana asset. Sukumaram, Krisham, Vruddham, Shishum, Sneham, Visham, Tata, Krishnartam, Ushnakale, Saha, Bhaktena Payeta. Patient who is very weak or very delicate or in children or those who do not like the Sneha, you may give it along with the food as such. Now, Sarvamre Yogas. Pipalyaha, Lavadam Sneha, Chatvaro Dhrimastukaha, Pitam Ekadyam Etadi Sadhya Snehana Muchate. The word Sadhya Snehana, again, there is a misunderstanding with this word. Sadhya Snehana is you add certain substances to the Sneha Dravya in such a way that it produces the Samyak Snigdha Lakshana as early as possible. But some people have misunderstood the word as Sadhya Snehana, Sadhya Vamana, Sadhya Virechana and so on. That word Sadhya is often misunderstood many times. But according to Sushila, Sadhya Snehana is not a shortcut. It's only to facilitate the absorption of the Sneha and to produce the Samyak Snigdha Lakshana in a person who otherwise may not develop that Samyak Snigdha Lakshana properly. You may give all the 4 Snehas together and add Dadhi and Mastu. All these put together with the Pippali and Lavana may produce a Samyak Snigdha Lakshana early. Brashtaha Mamsarasaya Snigdaha Vaguhu Supakalpitaha Prakshudra Vyamana to Sadhya Snehana Muchate. Similarly, Sadhya Snehana can be produced, an early sign of Samyak Snigdha Lakshana can be produced by the Mamsarasa Yavagu as such, or Sarpishmati Payasiddha Yavagu Sapatandala Sukoshna Sivamana Sadhya Snehana Muchate. Another option, the different options to produce a Samyak Snigdha Lakshana in a patient who doesn't develop the Samyak Snigdha Lakshana easily. Pippalyaha Lavanam Sarpi Tilabishtam Varahaja Vasacha Pitagmaikadyam Sadhya Snehana Muchate. Sharkara Churna Samsaste Dohanaste Grate to Gam Dugdha Kshiram Pipe Druksha Sadhya Snehana Muchate. Yavakola Kulathanam Kwatho Magadikanvitaha Payo Dhati Surachete Gritam Apyastamam Bhaveta Siddham Ete Gritam Pitam Sadhya Snehanam Uttamam Rajne Rajasamay Bhavadiyam Etal Gritottamam. These are all the different options of producing the Sadhya Snehana, where the total duration of the Sneha Krama can be reduced, as well as even in a person who otherwise may not develop the Samyak Snigdha Lakshana, you can make the patient have the Samyak Snigdha Lakshana. Balahineshu Vruddheshu Mrudu Agni Stri Hatatmasu Alpadeveshu Yogyasyu Yogaha Samyagiritaha. These yogas can be given in very old patients, very weak patients, and who have emaciated body, and the doshas are relatively milder. These Samyak Sneha Yoga could be used as an alternate option. Now, Vivarjayet Snehapanam Ajirni Tarunajvari Durbalo Arochaki Sthulo Murchartho Madapiditaha Chardyarditaha Pipasartaha Shrantaha Panaklamanitaha Dattadastihi Viriktascha Vanto Yashchapimanavaha Akale Durdine Tiva Nacha Sneham Pibennaraha Akale cha Prasuta Stri Snehapanam Vivarjayet Snehapana Bhavantyesham Nrinam Nana Vidha Gadaha Gadava Krisham Yanti Nasidyanti Athava Punaha Garbhashe Avashesha Syu Raktakleda Malasadaha Sneham Jakshat Nisheveta Patanam Rukshamevacha Dasharatra Tatasneham Yathavada Avachareta. The contraindications for the Sneha are depending upon the physical conditions, immediate, in the short duration, early duration of the fever, the weak patients who have arochaka, dyspepsia-like conditions, who are very obese and who are unconscious or having impaired consciousness, who already have vomiting, who have excess of thirst, who are very tired as such, or who have consumed a lot of alcohol, and after the basti or immediately after Virechana or Vamana, the Snehana should not be given, and the proper day, like it should be in a bright day, not in a cloudy day, it should not be given, and after abortion, Snehapana should be avoided because it can produce consumption of the Sneha, can produce some diseases, or the already existing diseases may become more difficult to be treated, or even they may become incurable, and particularly in females, it may produce a sepsis in the garbhashaya, in the uterus, and hence that should not be avoided, should not be given, particularly for after abortion. For minimum 10 days, snehapana is not indicated. Now, Vakbeta has clearly given a more specific, more clear-cut indications and contraindications for the Sehana, and the indications are Swedya, Sweda Samshodhya Madhyasti Vyayama Asakta Chintakaha, Vruddhabara Abala Krishaha, Rukshaha, Kshina Asrayataha, Vatartha Chandatimira, Daruna Pratibodhinaha, Snehyaha. Vakbeta has classified Snehya and Asnehya separately, almost same, but there is more specified indications. Particularly that kind of sneha is given for the preparation of the shodhana. Stress is given on that part in Vagbhata. Natu ati mandagni tishna agni stula durbalaha urustamba atisara ama gala roga garogarehi murcha chardi aruti shleshma tasna madhyeshta pedilaha apaprasuta ippejanadiya nasye vastaucha virechane. The snehana is contraindicated in these conditions. पुरीशं गर्जितं वृक्षं कृच्छादन्नं विपच्यते गुरो इदश्यते वायुः कोष्ठादुपरि धावति दुर्वर्णो दुर्बलश्चैव रुक्षो भवति मानवः. Due to rukshata, that's if you do not consume sneha, the complications which can occur would be the stools will become hard and the digestion will become impaired. There will be burning sensation in the chest and there will be reversal movement, a retrograde movement of water, and durvarna durbala, you will become weak and dry. स्निग्ध तग बिट शैथिल्यम दीप्तो अग्नि मृदुगात्रता ग्लानिः लाघवम अंगानम अधस्तात् स्नेह दर्शनम सम्यक स्निग्धस्य लिंगानि स्नेहोद्वेगस्तेव च. सम्यक स्निग्ध लक्षण is where the patient would have that oiliness felt, the stools become softer and agni will be strong, and there will be lightness, feeling of lightness, and the oily substance will be seen in the fecal material. And snehudvega, there will be a feeling of that oiliness in the mouth. That's considered as the samyak snigdha lakshana. This is totally different from sneha satmya lakshana. Sneha satmya lakshana is deeptantaragnihi parishuddha kostaha pratyeknuratoh balavarnayuktaha dhrirendeh mandajarashtayu snehapusevi purusha bhavet. So, a person who consumes sneha regularly will become very strong and physically strong as such. That's a sneha upasevi. Sneha upasevi is who consumes any sneha dravya regularly. Samyak snigdha lakshana, when you give that, would be of these symptoms like tvagviti shaitilya, agnimat nudugatrata. These are the samyak snigdha lakshana, and there should be no confusion about it. Bhakta dveshaha mukhasravo budadaha pravahika parisha atipravischa brisha snigdhasya lakshana. If we have given rapidly, the snehana is given rapidly, beyond the capacity of a person, then it will result in bhakta dvesha, dyspepsia, mukhasrava, there will be a lot of discharges from the mouth, salivation, burning sensation in the anus, or even diarrhea-like conditions can produce. Rukshasya snehanam snehi ati snigdhasya rukshanam shama kora dushanna takra pinyaka shaktubihi. If the body is ruksha, then you have to give snehana. If the patient is already some more snigdha, then it has to be done rukshana by using these food substances. With the food modification, you can control that level of the snehana. Sneho hitaha durbala vanni deha sandukshane vyati nipiritasya balanitau bhojana doshajatihi pramartitam tau sahasa nasadhyau. Sneha procedure is preferred in weak patients and those who have impaired digestion as such, and those who have already have some other disease and hence the patient has become weaker due to the disease, or the patient who has some abnormal or irregular food habits or unhealthy food habits. To correct that food habits, effects of the food habits, it can be done. Tatra dhruti smriti meda adhikankshanam shasire ghusam. Now this is what Vakbeta has said. Vakbeta has suggested a slightly different notion about these options of the snehana. The indications for the Ghirta Taila, as mentioned in Sushruta, which you have already referred to, slightly different in Vakbeta. Those who prefer better intellectual property, they should be given Ghirta. Granti Nadi Krimi Shleshma Mego Martharogishu Tailam. In the patients who have Granthi Nadi, etc., Taila has to be given. And Vat Atapa Adva Bharastri Vyayama Kshinadarshu Ruksha Kshama Atyagni Vatavrata Pasesha Shesho. In other conditions, these Vasa and Matya has to be given. Vasatu Sandhyasti Marma Kostarujascha Tadha Datta Ahata Brashayori Karna Shiroruji. Dvabhyam Tribihi Chaturbihi Su Yamaka Tributu Mahana. The Bhagavata has given a special word for these Yamaka and Tributa. When you have two snehas put together, that's Yamaka. When three of them are put together, that's a Tributa. And all of them together is a Chaturthaga asset. Then Ushnodakapachari Syad Brahmachari Kshapashaya Nabegarodhi Vyayam Krodha Shoka Himatapan Prabhata Yana Adhva Bhashya Atyasana Samstirihi Nicha Atyucha Upadhanaha Swapna Dhuma Rajanscha Yanyahani Pivetani Tavan Janyani Tyajet Sarvakarma Swayam Praya Vyapikshineshta Kramaha. After the Snehapana, till the same time, same duration as that of the Snehapana is done, patient has to follow regulations, restrictions, and the restrictions should be Ushnodakapachari, should consume more of warm water and should have proper sleep, and physical activity should be reduced, and exposure to the sunlight and exposure to the nature should be reduced. And Upacharastu Shamane Karyaha Snehe Viltavat. Now I have underlined this word, and the font size is increased from the same point which I just mentioned earlier, like Shamana Sneha used, that word Shamana Sneha used by Bhagavata doesn't mean that it has to be given in small quantities, but the same protocol of the Sneha given, and then without the Virechana, where you will have to follow that Samsarjana Krama after the Snehana for a week or so on, till the duration or till that same number of days as per the Snehana. This has to be followed, and all that protocol would be as you do after the Virechana. This is what Bhagavata has said, and that's the exact meaning of the Shamana Sneha. With this, we will conclude. It is Sushrutamita Chikitsastane snehopyogachikitsa Nama Ekatrimshado Adhyaya. If there are any questions, I will try to answer and find out. Right. Okay, there are no more questions.